to get your news on. We are VK1WIA. National news for week commencing June 18, 2023, in our 28th year of non-stop news, and it comes from the Apple Isle of VK7, and this week WIA President Scott VK3KJ with the VK7 centenary. International news sees more hamfests in Region 1 and 3 along with YOTA in Region 3. This week's WIA Special Interest Group news reporter digs into some hilarious VK7 historical events, and contest news covers the VHF-UHF contest with special EME reporter Richard VK7ZBX. We cover space junk being made into fuel and emergency digital radio networks, plus much more in this edition of the news from the Wireless Institute of Australia. I'm the guest editor this week, Justin VK7 Tangled Whiskers. And now over to our President, Scott Williams.
Hello to all listeners. This is WIA President Scott Williams, VK3KJ, with a special board comment to celebrate the centenary of organised amateur radio in Tasmania, VK7. Back in 1923, the Wireless Institute of Australia Tasmanian Division was formed, and VK7 have been celebrating this event in a huge manner. Although the start of the Tasmanian Division in 1923 was a little rocky, with the first AGM report citing a black eye and drawn blood, it was the first president of the division being the one sustaining the black eye. Maybe some things don't change high. Many great things have come from the Apple Isle in the way of radio. Pop Medhurst VK7AH back in 1901 was one of the first in Tasmania to complete a ship-to-shore spark radio contact with the Royal Navy vessels accompanying the Duke and Duchess of York. 1912 saw a spark contact between Hobart and Macquarie Island and the Commonwealth Bay in Antarctica for the Mawson expedition. Grote Reber, the father of radio astronomy, moved to Tasmania in the 1950s to map the Milky Way, and he was also an amateur radio operator. Who could forget Tom Moffat, VK7TM Silent Key, and Moffat's Madhouse in Electronics Australia? Tom was also one of VK7's adopted sons. Joe Gulston, VK7JG OAM Silent Key, was well known to many Australian and overseas amateurs for his microwave experimentation and endless energy fixing and maintaining repeaters around Tasmania. Notable VK7 amateurs include, who are still very much alive today, are Rex Moncur, VK7MO, whose endless energy and mentoring many amateurs in the fine art of microwave EME communication is legendary, and Hayden, VK7HH, with his ever-popular Ham Radio DX YouTube channel. On behalf of the board of the Wireless Institute of Australia, I would like to wish all in VK7 a very happy centenary, and may amateur radio continue to flourish and grow in Tasmania for another 100 years. Keep an ear out for VK7 WIA on the bands, as the roster for stations operating the call sign is full, and I understand there might even be some EME contacts with other countries taking this centenary well and truly out of this world. This has been Scott Williams, VK3KJ, President and Director of the WIA.
Thanks, Scott. International news with thanks to the worldwide sources of the WIA. Region 1. The IARU Region 1 team will be at Ham Radio, the 46th International Amateur Radio Exhibition, from June the 23rd until the 25th at Messe Friedrichshafen. They will be present at the IARU booth A1860 and our youth working group at the IARU youth booth A1766. Visit for the first time the IARU Open Innovation Zone A1864, where ham radio experimenters will share their experiences. This is the zone where innovation meets passion. At this moment, we can already share that 7 teams have requested a slot. These teams include the M17 project. M17 is developing a new digital radio protocol for data and voice made by and for amateur radio operators. SatDump, a free and open source software set dedicated to receive, demodulate and process data from satellites. GNU Radio is a free and open source software development toolkit that provides signal processing blocks to implement software radios. Web Radio Control is a project supported by the IARU Shaping the Future initiative. Web Radio Control allows you to operate your amateur radio station using a web browser. Charlie 25 is an SDR project created by Erwin, Delta Lima 1 Foxtrot Yankee, Edwin, Delta Charlie 9 Oscar Echo, Marcus, Delta Golf 8 Mike Golf, and Marcus, Delta Golf 8 Golf Mike, from the DARC Club C25. The team started in 2014 to explore the capabilities of SDR technology. Step by the IARU Open Innovation Zone, where we invite you to explore exciting projects from our community. From software-defined radio to powerful digital signal processing tools and captivating citizen science initiatives, you will witness the future of amateur radio unfold before your eyes. More information is available on the emailed version of this news. Region 3 JARL is pleased to announce the Ham Fair 2023 to be held on the above dates at Tokyo Big Sight Convention Center. The biggest event in Japanese Amateur Radio Society, Ham Fair 2022, was held on the 20th and 21st of August at Tokyo Big Sight Convention Center, and visitors were down, with only 35,000 attending over the 2 days. We're expecting more in 2023. This year's theme is to promote healthy development of amateur radio and improvement of technology. There are exhibitions and events for introducing amateur radio to the general public, exchanging the information and establishing friendships between amateurs. It will be the 45th JRL Ham Fair. The theme is Let's Go for the New Era of Amateur Radio. Again, more information is available on the email version of this news.
Thanks, Mike. Youth on the Air, YOTA in Region 3. The IARU R3, in conjunction with the Radio Amateur Society of Thailand, RAST, under the royal patronage of His Majesty the King of Thailand, have announced that Youngsters on the Air, YOTA, IARU Region 3 Camp, will be held on 27th to 29th of October 2023 in Pattaya City, Thailand. This event provides a venue for young amateurs from member societies of the IARU Region 3 to meet multinational friends and experience radio communication related activities and technologies. The activities that will be covered during the camp include the following: electronics workshop, antenna building workshop, fox hunting, radio station establishment and operation, VHF, HF and satellite contact experience, and a local tour of Pattaya City. A copy of the proposed programme is included with an article in the news section on the WIA webpage. The IARU Region 3 will provide transportation back and forth between Suvarnabhumi Airport, BKK, in Bangkok, Thailand, and the venue, and other costs during the event, including meals, local tour, and accommodation. However, the participants will need to bear travel costs between their home country and Thailand. Should you consider you might like to participate in this YOTA camp, then send your expression of interest to the Secretary, Peter Klee, via email details in the text edition. The WIA are keen to support this YOTA activity.
From here, there and everywhere, you've tuned to the Wireless Institute of Australia's National News Service on VK1WIA.
You're listening to Mel Bush on ABC Radio Hobart and ABC Northern Tasmania.
Good morning. It is 18 to 11 and it is, as I mentioned, this time every Saturday, we like to delve into a little bit of history. And one local organisation or group of clubs are celebrating their 100th year this month. June is the centenary of organised amateur radio in Tasmania. And the VK7 committee have a stack of events planned north and south. And I tell you what, they've come a long way from the Crystal set, it has to be said.
We certainly have, Mel, and we delve into the beginnings of the WIA in VK7. As mentioned by the current president of the WIA earlier in this broadcast, the birth of the WIA in Tasmania was a difficult one. It all started with an unsatisfactory demonstration of wireless at Hobart's Palais de Dance, which was probably due to a lack of knowledge about public address, and there was dissension in the ranks. Later demonstrations held in a hall where the audience was quiet and did not attempt to dance were much more successful, and Sydney broadcasting stations were received. From the august magazine of the 1920s, the Listener In of the 14th of March 1925, in the Wireless Club's report column, I quote, "The Hobart Radio Experimenters Club is a strong body of wireless enthusiasts. The club was once known as the Wireless Institute, but a split occurred, in the course of which blood was spilt and a black eye told its tale, and the new body was formed with the donor of the black eye as president. The Wireless Institute is still in existence, but in a rather negative state at the moment," unquote. And one of the early amateurs, Trevor Watkins, VK7 Alpha Alpha, noted in his log of the 7th of April 1924, "First AGM, very lively," with 2 exclamation marks. By 1925, things were settling down, with the Hobart-based WIA-affiliated Radio Experimenters Club motto being "With Harmony." The 5th Federal Convention of the Wireless Institute of Australia was held in Hobart in 1928, when the proceedings took 5.5 days. The convention was also held in Hobart in 1935, 1967 and 2022. Over almost 80 years, there were still rumblings from both Hobart and Launceston amateurs as to who could best govern the Tasmanian division of the WIA, and the headquarters moved up and down the Midlands Highway a few times. In Tasmania during this time, if you were a member of a local amateur radio club, you were automatically a member of the WIA, because clubs were just branches of the Tasmanian division. Then in October 2004, the move to the national WIA led to the winding up of the Tasmanian division, and the branches formed into separate affiliated clubs. Further details of this fascinating history can be found in this month's AR magazine in a wonderful article by Richard Rogers, VK7RO, titled "Parochialism Makes for Good History in VK7."
It's 20 past 11. It is Weekdays with Andrew Roberts. Now, happening this month, centenary of the organised amateur radio in Tasmania. It's happening here in Ulverston on the 24th of June, one of the open days. And, of course, the Ulverston event organiser is Eric van der Noot. He's with me on the phone. Good morning to you, Eric.
Good morning, Andrew.
So, Eric, this centenary of organised amateur radio in Tasmania, please tell me what it's all about.
Right. On the 24th of June, we're actually... in June 1923, a formal amateur radio organisation was constructed in Hobart under the umbrella of the Wireless Institute of Australia. That's the national body that deals with the Australian Communications and Media Authority, etc. And we thought it would be a great day to bring a lot of the different aspects of amateur radio into one place, which will be the Scout Hall at Ulverston, and members of the public, we're having some interactive displays, so members of the public can come in and participate.
Ham radio operational news. It's a contact sport. Now contest wires across to our special EME reporter Richard, VK7 ZBX.
June 24th and 25th is the winter VHF-UHF field day. Well, the weather has begun to chill off, so that means it must be getting close to the time for winter UHF-VHF field day. Yes, folks, it's time to go somewhere cold and play radios for a while. This year, the field day will be held from 0100 UTC on June the 24th through to 0059 UTC on June the 25th. But in VK6, add 2 hours to the start and end times. Plenty of categories to participate in. There's no need to go portable, although it is a great opportunity to get out and about and play radio. But you can still operate from your home station if you wish. Knowing your current grid square is a requirement for logging, so perhaps do a bit of Google Earthing or use one of the many apps that will let you discover your 6-digit Maidenhead locator. There are a couple of logging programs, namely VKCL and M1MM, all will talk to your radio, making logging much easier. Why not introduce a new licence holder to the world of field days? You just never know where it may take them. Please remember, of course, to submit your log after the contest is finished. Hope to hear you on the higher bands. For more information, take a look at the URL on the email edition of this broadcast. And now it's back to Justin.
The NZART Memorial Contest has been held every year since 1946 to commemorate those New Zealand amateur radio operators who lost their lives in World War II. The contest is held every year on the Saturday and Sunday of the first weekend of July. The 2023 Memorial Contest dates are the 1st and 2nd of July, and the IARU HF World Championship Contest takes place the second full weekend of July, beginning 1200 UTC Saturday and ending 1200 UTC Sunday, July the 8th and 9th. All licensed amateurs worldwide are eligible to participate in this contest, as the objective is to contact as many other amateurs as possible, especially IARU member society headquarters stations around the world using 160, 80, 40, 20, 15 and 10 metre bands. July 15, Trans-Tasman Low Band Contest, held on the third weekend in July, aims to encourage low band activities between VK and ZL. 160, 80 and 40 metres are allowed with SSB, CW and digital, which is RTTY or PSK. That comes from the contest manager Alan Shannon, VK4, Sierra November.
August 12th to 13th, Remembrance Day Contest. This contest commemorates the amateurs who died during World War II and is designed to encourage friendly participation and help improve the operating skills of participants. It's held on the weekend closest to the 15th of August, the date on which hostilities ceased with Japan in the Southwest Pacific area. A perpetual trophy is awarded annually to the Australian state or territory with the best performance. The name of the winning state or territory is inscribed on the trophy, and that state or territory then holds the trophy for 12 months. The winning state or territory is also given a certificate as our leading entrants. Given VK7 is presenting this WIA national news, it would be remiss of us not to mention that VK7 has won the RD contest every year since 2016. And it's all about participation. August 26 and 27, Alara contest. The contest is always on the last full weekend of August. All licensed operators throughout the world are invited to participate. Scout and Girl Guide groups are encouraged to participate using their club's equipment and call sign. YLs work everyone, OMs work YLs only. Combined phone and CW run over 24 hours. Saturday 0600 hours UTC till Sunday 0559 hours UTC. All HF bands except 160 metres and WARC bands. Echolink will also be accepted. For more information, check out the Alara website on the email edition of this broadcast. And while we're on Alara, Alara Meet 2023 happens in Hobart in early November. Alara Meet 2023 is happening from the 3rd to the 6th of November in Hobart, Tasmania. Registrations are now open and will close at the end of July. To register, take a look at the Alara website. We are expecting about 40 people, including about 20 OMs. We look forward to seeing you all down in Hobart at the Alara Meet 2023. This has been Linda, VK7QP.
Australia's ham radio news station. We are VK1 WIA.
Now, worldwide special interest groups out of this world. During the Reist Centennial Open Day held on the 10th of June 2023, I was fortunate enough to make an out-of-this-world contact with Paulo, Charlie Tango 2 Golf United Radio in Portugal. This was using my 10 GHz Earth-Moon-Earth system, comprising of a 1.8 metre prime focus dish that is mounted on a fabricated frame that sits in a trailer which automatically tracks the moon. The equipment is a Kuhn transverter and preamp with a waveguide switch running about 20 watts of power with everything GPS locked. Paulo was running a 2.4 metre prime focus dish with about 40 watts and his homebrew tracking system. Conditions were not optimal, with shrubbery beginning to obstruct things at my end, but we managed to make the contact without issue. WSJT signals were with Paulo receiving me at minus 24 dB and I was able to copy him at minus 20 dB. This was my first 10 GHz EME contact with a Charlie Tango station and his first with a VK station, so it was very special. I'm planning to operate the special call sign of VK7WIA on Earth Moon Earth when the opportunities present themselves this June. Hear you off the moon. This has been Richard, VK7ZBX, for the WIA National News, VK7 Centennial Edition.
Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Final Frontier, Space Junk, a small high-tech cube made by Australian engineers and scientists has just been launched into space for the first time, and it could be a solution for the growing space junk problem. Space archaeologist Alice Gorman said, with that influx of space junk would come the waste that they leave behind. Space junk refers to all the old satellites and fragments of satellites and tiny particles that are in orbit at the moment, Dr. Gorman said. A conservative estimate is that there are around 37,000 pieces of junk that are larger than 10 centimetres in size. If we go below 10 centimetres, then there are hundreds of millions of tiny little fragments. Dr. Gorman said, even the tiniest pieces of debris could destroy crucial satellites. Everything that's in orbit around the Earth is speeding around at an average velocity of 7 kilometres a second, so you don't want to be hit by something at those speeds, she said. But it is now hoped that technology developed by Adelaide-based company Newman Space could provide some assistance to cleaning up the mess. Space sustainability is extremely important, so we can play in that environment with tourism, CEO Herve Astia said. First, we can help deorbit a satellite faster, but we can also use space junk as propellant in our system. Usually propulsion systems have been gas or electric. However, a team of engineers and scientists in Adelaide created one which can be powered by solid metals recycled from space debris. That's where the Newman drive comes in. It's basically converting the solid metal propellant into plasma, engineer Hamza Baig said. The Newman drive will be used by space companies in the US which can carry devices on their satellites such as nets or robotic arms to capture orbital waste. The thruster would then enable these satellites to return to Earth with the waste to be melted down into more fuel. After almost a decade of testing and preparing the technology for orbit, the propulsion system was sent into space for the first time today. Dr. Gorman said the launch presented huge potential for Australia's space industry. The technology of plasma thrusters using metal as a fuel is a really exciting development, she said. For more information, take a look at the URL in the email edition of this broadcast.
WW Special Interest Groups, Digital Radio. Transition to the Tasmanian Government radio network begins soon. Tasmanian Minister for Police, Fire and Emergency Management, Felix Ellis, has announced that 8 of the state's public safety agencies will transition to the Tasmanian Government radio network, or TasGRN, provided by Telstra and Motorola Solutions, commencing in July. The $763 million network was announced in 2020 and has been built on a feature-rich P25 Phase 2 platform, providing a range of capabilities, including greater interoperability, increased coverage, secure encrypted communications for emergency service workers, and a modern user interface. Ellis said the transition to the new network will see Hydro Tasmania, Tas Networks, Parks and Wildlife and Sustainable Timber Tasmania move across by August. The police, fire and emergency services will then follow. The TAS-GRN project has created up to 50 jobs during the 3-year construction phase, with additional positions to be recruited to help run and oversee the network once it is fully operational later this year, Ellis said. As an added bonus, the TAS-GRN will deliver improved mobile phone coverage for Telstra users in Tasmania at no cost to the state, particularly in regional Tasmania. More information is available on the email version of this news. And now back to Peter.
Worldwide Special Interest Groups, Maritime, International Lighthouse and Lightship Weekend. The ILLW weekend takes place over the weekend of August 19th to 20th. Countries all over the world have become involved in one form or another of the lighthouse activity during August. Some years ago, the United States Congress declared August 7th as their National Lighthouse Day, and during that first time in August, amateur radio stations in America set up portable stations at lighthouses and endeavoured to make contacts with each other. This event is known as the US National Lighthouse Week. In Britain, the Association of Lighthouse Keepers, ALK, conducts International Lighthouse Heritage Weekend on the same weekend as the ILLW in August. Their objective is to encourage lighthouse managers, keepers and owners to open their lighthouses or light stations and related visitor centres to the public with a view to raising the profile of lighthouses, light vessels and other navigational aids and preserving our maritime heritage. The ILLW usually takes place on the third full weekend in August each year and attracts over 500 lighthouse entries located in over 40 countries. It is one of the most popular international amateur radio events in existence, probably because there are very few rules and there is not the usual contest type event. Last but definitely not least, here in VK7 we're in good company and we wish another club a happy 100th birthday celebration to the Ballarat Amateur Radio Club. In June of 1923, the Ballarat Amateur Radio Club held its first ever meeting. A century later, and now known as the Ballarat Amateur Radio Group, BARG, members are celebrating the organisation's 100th anniversary. President Ben Daniel said the centenary is a chance to highlight ham radio and its place in the city. BARG is sponsoring a month-long on-air event to commemorate 100 years of known amateur radio activity in Ballarat by offering an electronic certificate to any amateur radio station who makes at least one on-air contact with any Ballarat-based amateur radio station during the month of June, he said. The hobby is not only historic, but a popular pastime in Ballarat that's united people and their electronics. Amateur radio activity was the first social media long before Twitter, YouTube and Facebook, Mr. Daniels said. Amateur radio and the magic of wireless is alive and well and even more accessible than ever. For more information, take a look at the URL in the email edition of this broadcast. This has been Peter, VK7PD, for the WIA National News, VK7 Centennial Edition.
And we finish today with the 2023 social scene, and clubs are welcome to submit text with audio for this section. VK7, well, it's the month of June, the centenary of organised amateur radio in Tasmania. And we just heard about BARG, the 100th birthday celebration of the Ballarat Amateur Radio Club. VK5, the Adelaide Hills Amateur Radio Society buy and sell at the Marion RSL on July the 15th. VK4 Sunfest, September the 9th at Mountain Creek State School. Massive air-conditioned auditorium just off the Sunshine Motorway. Mountain Creek is tucked into the west of Mooloolaba. VK, the Alara Meet 2023 on the 4th and 5th of November in Hobart. VK3, the Rosebud Radio Fest at Eastbourne Primary School, Sunday, November the 12th. And back to VK5, the Amateur Radio Experimenters Group Radio and Electronics Sale on November the 26th. Well, that's a wrap from the VK7 Centenary edition of the WIA National News. And a special thank you to Scott, VK3KL, Peter, VK7PD, Mike, VK7FB, Linda, VK7QP, and Richard, VK7ZBX. And this is Justin, VK7, Tangled Whiskers. And as Graham 4BB signs off each week, Walk softly.
This has been the Wireless Institute of Australia with the weekly news service. This broadcast is in text, audio and video and is accessed on wia.org.au.
Courtesy of Bevan, VK5BD's ATV and YouTube channel, this has been WIA National News. We're back now, live and local, and your voice, your callbacks. And don't forget, tick like.
We've had some gorgeous eye candy over the poles, a pocket of fast solar wind that's bumped us to storm levels, and more activity looks like it's on its way. Those stories and more in the news this week. If you want to learn how weather from our star causes impacts at the Earth that shape the future of our world, join Professors Dr. Jenny Meehan, Michael Cook, and myself as we guide you through a space weather certificate program like no other. To enroll in the Space Weather and Environment Science program offered at Millersville University, go to millersville.edu/SWEN. It's weather for the 21st century. This forecast also sponsored in part by CW Ops. Our sun is definitely giving us a lot to look at in terms of space weather this week. As we take a look at our Earth-facing disk, you can see there's quite a few active regions and some coronal holes on the Earth-facing disk. But first, look at the poles. Right there on the 12th, whoosh! Did you see that massive filament lift off? That is a polar crown filament, and on the next day, on the 13th, whoosh! It's followed by another one. These big eruptions are good signs that we are inching ever closer to solar maximum. But meanwhile, down at mid-latitudes in the sun, those are the regions that are going to give us a chance to have Earth-directed solar storms. Well, right now, we're not seeing a lot in terms of big eruptions. However, there's a couple regions like region 3333 that we're watching very closely because it is a big flare player, and there's some regions rotating into Earth view here on the east limb that are also going to be big flare players. However, before that, as we take a look at the coronal holes, look, we've got a coronal hole that's now rotated into the Earth strike zone. This one has already been sending us some fast solar wind, and it has bumped us up to storm levels. We're sitting at G1 levels right now. We could actually bump up to G2 levels, probably not over the next couple days, but G1 levels definitely. And then things should taper off right around the 18th or so. But that could give us some decent aurora, possibly down to mid-latitudes for a short bit. And then, believe it or not, we've got another coronal hole in the south that's going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone in the part of next week. So we could, over the next 2 weeks, really begin to pick up in activity. And at solar flux is also beginning to rise again. And big solar flares are also on the menu. Now, taking a look at our far-sighted monitor of the sun, this is stereo A, and it's looking at the sun just a little bit from the side. As we take a look at the sun from stereo's view, on the west part of the sun, you can see that big coronal hole rotating to the west limb. That is the coronal hole that's sending Earth some fast solar wind right now and has bumped us up to storm levels. But if you look just to the east of that, you can see that snake-like filament. Now, this filament, we've been watching it, and it doesn't look like it's going to erupt like those beautiful polar crown filaments erupted, but it has been shedding some material, and it's rotating through the Earth strike zone right now. So we are paying attention because it could be an Earth-directed solar storm if it chooses to erupt. Now, looking to the east of that, you can see that coronal hole in the south. And then, because that one's going to give us some fast solar wind here in about a week. And then take a look at the very far part of the east limb. Look at all the bright regions. Now, some of those have already rotated into the Earth view, but we have a couple of them that are still on the sun's far side, and they are solar storm producers. In fact, as we take a look at the JSOC HMI helioseismology far-sighted viewer, you can see just over the past couple days, look at those dark regions. Those regions are the ones that are going to be rotating into Earth view here in about 3.5 days in the south and about 7 days in the north. They're definitely going to be helping bring that solar flux back up easily into the 160s, if not the 170s. That means amateur radio operators, you're going to have some decent propagation again on Earth's day side. Not that it's gone too far bad, but we are going to likely have more noise on the bands as well. So for dayside radio propagation, you're going to have to deal with the potential for more radio blackouts here over this next couple weeks as these new regions rotate into Earth view. But we also have the potential for more solar storms. Switching to our moon, we are now passing through the new moon phase, with the new moon being on the 18th. And by the 21st, on the summer solstice, the moon will only be about 10% illuminated. So you night sky watchers, if you want to catch those dim objects in the sky, well, now is your perfect chance. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we do have some fast solar wind from that coronal hole that's been rotating in through the Earth strike zone, and that has bumped us up to storm levels over the past day or so and will continue to do so. In fact, at high latitudes, NOAA is expecting minor storm conditions, but we have up to about a 25% chance of a major storm, and this will last in through the 17th and begin to taper off around the 18th and then kind of go back to unsettled conditions. But we probably won't get much lower than that because we do have another coronal hole that's going to be rotating in through the Earth strike zone as early as next week. So expect, if you're an aurora photographer at high latitudes, expect to get decent chances for aurora over this week and possibly into next. Now at mid latitudes, things are actually still pretty good. We are expecting minor storm levels. We only have about 15% chance of minor storm levels over the next few days. Things are going to calm down a little bit faster. By the 18th, things should calm down and be back to unsettled conditions. But again, we could bump back up to storm levels starting around at about the 21st or so, because we have that other coronal hole that's going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone. So aurora photographers, if you're at mid latitudes, well, it's going to be a sporadic chase, but you could get an opportunity for some aurora if you are dedicated. Switching to our solar flare and dayside radio blackout outlook over the coming week, we do have quite a few active regions in Earth view and a couple big flare players, including region 3333, 35, and 38. And as these regions grow, they're definitely boosting that solar flux. We're in the mid 150s and we could climb to the 160s and possibly into the 170s as we move into next week, especially with the new regions that are going to have yet to rotate into Earth view. Meanwhile, NOAA is giving us about a 20% chance of M-class flares over this next week. This is at an R1 to R2 radio blackout, so you can see we are having radio blackouts back on the menu. In fact, we even have about a 5% chance of X-class flares at an R3 level radio blackout, and these trends will easily continue over this next week. They might even rise a little bit. We definitely are sitting at moderate noise on the bands by the end of this week. And this means amateur radio operators expect, quite a bit more activity, but expect a bit more frustration. And GPS users definitely expect issues near dawn and near dusk over the next week and possibly 2 weeks before things settle back down. Switching to our radiation storm and polar aviation outlook over the next week, we are dealing with a bunch of active regions in Earth view, but luckily none of the big flare players are anywhere near the west limb. This means we're all in the green when it comes to the potential for radiation storms. We're sitting at the S0 level right now. That's the D1 normal range. So we have no issues when it comes to radiation storms, and that's likely how it's going to continue easily over this next week. Everything is quiet. However, as we begin to move into next week, we're going to have more regions rotating into view, and more of the big flare players are going to rotate to that west limb. So expect to see the risk begin to rise as of next week. So aviation industry and pilots, be aware everything is clear right now, and frequent flyers, you're all doing well. But pay more attention next week because conditions might change. So the space weather this week has given us a lot to talk about. Not only have we had some beautiful eye candy with those polar crown filaments erupting, but we also have that coronal hole that's rotated in through the Earth strike zone, and it's sending us some fast solar wind. We're up at storm levels right now. We might bump up to G2 levels. Probably not. We'll probably stay at G1 levels over the next couple days. This means aurora could come down to mid-latitude sporadically and give us some decent shows. Now, things will calm down over after about the 18th, but it won't be anything like quiet conditions. It'll probably be unsettled, and then it'll rise again as we have yet another coronal hole that's going to be rotating in through the Earth strike zone. So aurora photographers, if you don't get something over the next couple days, well, hang tight. You could get something starting around the 20th and possibly into the 21st, and that could give us yet another chance for some more aurora. On top of that, we do have some big flare players, and we do have a snake-like filament that we're watching, so there are more chances for solar storms here over the next couple weeks. Amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, you're going to be dealing with a bit more noise on the bands as more active regions rotate into Earth view. It's going to boost that solar flux, but it's also going to boost those radio blackout potential as well. And now you GPS users, well, you know, we've got that fast solar wind that's giving us a bit of a blow right now that's going to give us some aurora on the night side. And now we've got this new risk with the radio blackouts coming up. So sadly, if you're anywhere near aurora, you could have GPS issues. That's going to be mainly at high latitudes. Or if you're near dawn and dusk, you're also going to have to stay vigilant because GPS reception could also be a problem there. But just hang in there. Over the next couple weeks, things might be a little bit dicey, but it will get better. I'm Tamitha Skov, the Space Weather Woman. Thank you for watching.